I was 17 when I took on a babysitting job just a few streets over from where I lived. The couple was nice, friendly, polite, and even offered to pay more than I usually asked. They had a little girl named Lily who was about 5. Quiet, sweet, well-behaved. Almost too well-behaved. The parents walked me through the usual stuff. Bedtime at 8, snacks in the pantry, emergency numbers on the fridge. But right before they left, the mom turned serious. Like, dead serious. She said, "There's just one rule, and it's very important. Do not go into the basement. No matter what you hear, just stay out." At first I laughed, thinking maybe it was a joke or some weird attempt to spook me, but neither of them smiled. "We mean it," the dad said. "No matter what." They left shortly after, and I tried to shake off the weird vibe. The house itself was old, like really old. Wooden floors that creaked no matter where you stepped. Wallpaper that looked like it hadn't been changed since the 70s, and this faint smell of damp wood that lingered everywhere. Still, Lily was easy. She didn't say much but seemed happy to watch cartoons in color until bedtime. By 8:30 she was tucked in, lights off, and the house went still. I was sitting in the living room, scrolling on my phone, when I first heard it. It sounded like a metal chair dragging across a cement floor. Long, slow, scraping from directly beneath me. The basement. I sat up and froze. For a second, I actually convinced myself it was just the house settling, or maybe the heater kicking on. But then I heard it again. Louder this time. The sound of something heavy being pulled, then stopped, then pulled again. I remembered the parents' warning. Don't go into the basement, no matter what you hear. I stood up and walked slowly to the hallway where the basement door was. It was an old wooden door, the kind with a little keyhole and no knob, just a handle. I pressed my ear to it. At first, nothing, just silence. Then knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks from the other side of the door. I stumbled back, heart racing. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't some pipe banging. It was a hand knocking. I grabbed my phone and immediately texted the parents. "Hey, I heard something in the basement, like someone dragging something." Then knocks. "Is everything okay down there?" A minute passed, then 2, then finally a reply. "Don't open the door, no matter what you hear." That was it. No explanation, no reassurance. Just the same line, repeated. I didn't reply. I didn't want to. I sat there on the couch the rest of the night, trying to watch TV, but barely hearing it over the sound of my own heartbeat. The scraping came back, quieter this time. And then it stopped. Everything went silent, too silent. I started to get sleepy around 2 a.m., but I was too afraid to close my eyes. I just sat there on the couch, staring at that hallway, watching the door, waiting. The sun was finally starting to rise when I heard the front door open. The parents walked in, acting totally normal, like they'd just come back from dinner in a movie. "How was she?" the mom asked. "She slept fine," I muttered. "But, I heard things in the basement." The mom nodded like she already knew. "Thanks for not opening the door," she said. "That's all we ask." Then she smiled, sweet as ever. The last sitter didn't. My mouth went dry. I wanted to ask what happened to her, where she went. But before I could say anything, I noticed something. The dad was just standing there, not smiling, not moving, just staring at me. From the hallway, from the top of the basement stairs. I didn't ask any more questions. I just grabbed my stuff and left. I never saw Lily again, never got another message from them. Their number stopped working a few days later, And to this day, I still wonder who or what was behind that door. And what happened to the last girl? Who opened it? I used to babysit pretty regularly back in high school. Most of the jobs were boring, just keeping kids from sticking forks into outlets or smearing peanut butter on the walls. But there's one job I'll never forget. It was a weekend night. The parents, friends of a friend, were heading out for their anniversary. They had two kids, Ethan, who was 6, and Sophie, who was 4. The mom gave me the usual run-through: snacks, bedtime at 8, cartoons only until dinner. But then just before she left, she added something strange. Sophie might say weird things sometimes. She said, "Don't worry, she's got an overactive imagination." I nodded, thinking nothing of it. Every little kid is a little weird. Comes with the job. The first couple hours were totally fine. We ate pizza, played some games, watched Finding Nemo for probably the millionth time in my life. Ethan went to bed without a fuss. Sophie stayed up a little later. She was quiet, polite actually, but her eyes always seemed to wander toward her bedroom door. At around 8:45, I finally got her to lay down. I read her a short bedtime story, and as I was about to get up and leave the room, she tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Don't let him out this time." I blinked. "Who?" She lifted her finger and pointed, slowly, toward the closet. "The man with no lips," she whispered. "He talks without moving his mouth." I tried to stay calm. I even chuckled a little, hoping to shake off the weirdness. "Sweetie, there's no one in there. It's just clothes and toys." She shook her head, very slowly. "He only comes out when the light is off." That sentence hit harder than it should have. I left the nightlight on and gently closed the door behind me. I told myself it was just a kid being spooky before bed, nothing more. But about an hour later, I heard Sophie scream. It wasn't a startled cry. It wasn't a "had a bad dream" kind of scream. It was raw terror. I sprinted down the hallway, heart thudding, and threw open her door. She was curled up in a ball on her bed, arms over her head, sobbing uncontrollably. "Don't let him out," she kept repeating. "Don't let him out again." The closet door was open, just slightly, maybe 2 inches, wide enough for someone inside to peek out. Or worse. I walked over slowly and yanked it open. Nothing. Just her clothes, a laundry basket, a couple of stuffed animals on the shelf. I checked behind everything, even underneath the bed. Empty. But just as I was turning off the light to leave, I felt something, cold, brush against my forearm. It was like fingers, long and icy. I jumped back, hitting the wall behind me. My breath caught in my throat. Sophie had stopped crying. She was just staring now, not at me, not at the door, at the closet. I slammed it shut and dragged her out of the room. She slept on the couch with me the rest of the night. I didn't sleep at all. Every creak in the floor, every gust of wind outside the windows, it all felt wrong. At around 2 a.m., I texted the parents. Sophie had a bad night. She mentioned something about a man in the closet. Anything I should know? They didn't reply until almost 5:30 a.m. The mom finally responded with, "She used to tell her grandmother the same story. We think it's just a recurring dream. She hasn't mentioned him in months." But that wasn't the worst part. As I got up to gather my stuff before they got home, I walked past Sophie's bedroom one last time. The door was wide open now. I hadn't left it that way. Inside, the closet door was open again. There were scratches, long, vertical scratch marks on the inside of the door, like something or someone had been clawing at it from the inside. But the most chilling part? There was something carved into the wood near the bottom, about eye level for a 4-year-old. It said, "I let him out. I'm sorry." The handwriting was messy, jagged, like it had been done with a key or a nail. Definitely not by a child. When the parents returned and I showed them the message, the dad stared at it silently. Then he said, "We had the closet door replaced last year. The old one had carvings too." I asked them if they ever saw anything. The mom said, "No, but Sophie always sees him. She used to draw him with black circles where his mouth should be. Said he smiled without smiling. I never babysat for them again. I don't know what was in that closet, but I know what I felt, and I know that Sophie wasn't making it up." I was 19 and home from college when I took a babysitting job for a couple just a few blocks from my parents' house. They were new to the neighborhood and seemed nice enough, quiet, polite, and probably in their early 30s. The mom told me this would be the easiest money I'd ever make. Their baby, Olivia, was barely 3 months old and usually slept through the night. My only job was to keep an eye on her through the baby monitor, which they set up on the coffee table in the living room. They even left snacks out and told me to make myself at home. Honestly, it sounded like a dream gig. They left around 8:30. The baby had already been put to bed in the upstairs nursery, and for the first hour or so, everything was dead quiet. I curled up on the couch, scrolled through my phone, occasionally glancing at the monitor. It had a black and white video feed of the crib, with a soft glow from a nightlight in the room. The baby barely moved, just the occasional twitch or sleepy turn. It was peaceful. Around 10:30 though, something caught my eye. I glanced at the screen, and there was a hand resting on the edge of the crib. At first I thought it was the baby's, but that didn't make sense. It was too large. Long fingers, pale skin, adult-sized. It was just there, motionless. My first reaction was to laugh a little. I figured maybe it was a glitch in the monitor, maybe a delay or distortion in the video feed. But something about it made my stomach twist. The baby wasn't crying, wasn't even moving. The hand just stayed there. I leaned closer to the monitor. No movement, just the crib, the sleeping baby, and the hand gently curled over the edge, like someone was standing right next to it, watching. I grabbed the flashlight the parents had left me and headed upstairs. I didn't even hesitate, just moved fast up the creaky wooden steps. The hallway was darker than I expected. The nightlight from the nursery spilled just enough light to make everything look washed out and ghost-like. I pushed the nursery door open slowly. The room was empty. I stepped inside and shined my flashlight into every corner. The crib was against the far wall. Olivia was still asleep, calm and still, her tiny body rising and falling with each breath. I stared at her for a second, wondering if maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. I checked the closet. Nothing. Under the crib. Nothing. I even looked behind the curtains, feeling like an idiot. There was no one there, just a peacefully sleeping baby. Relieved but still unsettled, I made my way back downstairs. That's when I noticed the monitor was off. Not just the screen, it was completely unplugged. The cord dangled loose across the table, and the plug lay on the floor several feet away from the wall. Now I knew I didn't unplug it, and it had been working just minutes ago. I stood there staring at it, holding my flashlight like a weapon, half expecting to hear something upstairs. But the house was silent. Dead silent. I sat there, on edge for the next hour. I didn't even touch my phone, just watched the stairs and waited for the sound of the parents coming home. When they finally did, just after midnight, I nearly jumped out of my skin at the sound of the door opening. They walked in like nothing had happened, smiling, thanking me, asking how the night went. I hesitated, but then I told them what I saw. The hand in the crib, how I ran upstairs, how the monitor had been unplugged when I came back down. The moment I finished, they looked at each other, not surprised, not confused, nervous. That's when the dad asked me, "Did the hand have a ring on it?" The question hit me hard because I hadn't told them that detail. But yeah, now that he mentioned it, the hand did have something shiny on the middle finger, a thick silver ring. I nodded. Yeah, I think it did. The mom looked down at the floor. The dad sighed. And then he said something I'll never forget. This house belonged to my wife's grandfather. He passed away in that room years ago. He was buried in a dark suit, and his wedding ring, silver, wide band. I just stared at them. They weren't joking. They weren't messing with me. They looked genuinely uncomfortable, like I'd confirmed something they were afraid to say out loud. The mom tried to play it off, said maybe it was just a weird dream or that the monitor glitched like they sometimes do. But I could tell she didn't believe that. None of us did. Before I left, the dad walked me to the door and said quietly, "We don't talk about him much, but thank you for taking care of Olivia. He was always protective of family. I guess he still is." I didn't take another babysitting job that summer, and a few weeks later, I heard the couple had moved. Quick sale, quiet departure. I sometimes wonder if whoever moved in after them got the monitor too, and if they ever saw the hand.